Welcome back to a new video, and in this one I'm going to be starting a brand new series where I review horror franchises and then make tier lists about them. Tier lists have become very popular over the last several years with gaming and other forms of entertainment, and since I'm a fan of certain channels that do tier lists, and I'm also a fan of other horror movie content creators on YouTube like Dead Meat and Cody Leach, just to name a few, I figured I would combine the two and start making my own videos. Now, clearly you could tell by the title of this video that the first franchise I will be reviewing is Leprechaun. I figure since it is the month of March, St. Paddy's Day is in a couple days, and I have all of these movies on Blu-ray, I might as well start with this one. So in this very first video, I will be doing a summary and review of the first Leprechaun film. Along the way, I will also be grading each kill in the movie by placing it on the tier list. Now, there are obvious spoilers ahead, so if you somehow haven't seen this movie already and don't want it spoiled for you, click away now. Now, keep in mind these are my opinions and my opinions only, so don't take this too serious, but feel free to let me know what you think in the comments. Leprechaun is a 1993 horror and comedy film written and directed by Mark Jones. It stars the legendary Warwick Davis as the evil Leprechaun, and also features Jennifer Aniston's first credited movie role. This movie is about an evil leprechaun from Ireland who has his precious gold stolen and seeks revenge on those he believes stole it. The movie starts in Ireland, where we see the evil leprechaun counting all of his gold, then cuts to Mr. Dan O'Grady arriving home to show his wife Mrs. O'Grady all the gold that he had stolen from him. And shortly after this, not too long into the movie, we get our very first kill. Unbeknownst to Mr. O'Grady, the leprechaun had followed him all the way back to his home from Ireland. He ends up tricking Mrs. O'Grady into unlocking the suitcase where he is hidden at by using his voice-changing ability and pretending to be a trapped little girl.
I'm gonna suffocate.
Once Mrs. O'Grady approaches the suitcase, Leprechaun pops out, demands his gold before he pushes her down the stairs, snapping her neck. So, as far as where do I rank this kill on the tier list, first we'll go down through the whole list here. So for S tier is the horror elite. This is the top kills across any franchise, doesn't matter. This is reserved for a select few. Not a whole lot of kills of a really go here. You gotta really be amazing. A is a franchise standout, so it might be a standout for this franchise, and amazing for the franchise, or just really good, but not quite good enough to make S tier. B is just it's good, it's above average. C is average. This would be like your standard Michael Myers stabs someone 3 times in a day. You know, the stuff you see, it's not bad, it's not great, it's kind of what you'd expect. Poorly executed for D is going to be whether it's like really just awful CGI or really bad special effects, or a kill that should have been more gory or got taken out because of a rating, or something that just didn't make sense. Something like that really needed some altering. And then F tier, again, you're not going to see a whole lot of kills ever make this, but this is just a kill that was so bad shouldn't have even made the damn movie. So you really got to be bad to make that. As far as where does this go, I'm going to put this right in the middle. We'll start off right in the middle at average. It's a pretty good kill, but there's nothing special. It's kind of a little wonky how the leprechaun approaches her, and you don't really see him push her down. She kind of just throws herself back, but it's an early 90s slasher. What can you expect? There's also no gore, really. All she does is break her neck, as if that's not, devastating, but it's not gory. It's not very creative per se, but what saves this from going down, because it's not poorly executed, you could almost even put this in B tier, but I'm not going to. But the reason I do like it, and it does get the consideration for B tier, is because of the theatrics, or not theatrics involved, but the cinematic events. I like the lightning when it strikes. You see like the silhouette of the leprechaun a little bit as he's standing at the top of the steps. I love his, beating red eyes popping through the suitcase. So those types of things and the imagery they use help bump this up a little bit. After killing his wife, the leprechaun then goes and confronts Mr. O'Grady and demands that he give him back his gold, but O'Grady chases him around with a 4-leaf clover. In the basement, Mr. O'Grady manages to shoot and stun the leprechaun before locking him inside of a box and placing a clover on top of it. He tries lighting the box in the fire, but suffers a stroke before he can do so, causing the leprechaun to be locked in there for 10 years. 10 years then pass by, and we're finally meeting the new family who's moving into the farmhouse. We first meet J.D. Redding and his daughter Tori Redding, who is played by Jennifer Aniston, as they find out how nasty a basement can get after 10 years of being untouched. Tori ends up running into Nathan, the contract worker outside, who she has an obvious crush on, and we then meet Alex, who is the little brother of Nathan, along with Ozzy, who is their not-so-intelligent friend. Ozzy, being the dunce that he is, manages to spill paint all over himself and has to head inside to clean up. Once Ozzy is inside and alone by himself, we hear the Leprechaun singing using his little girl voice once again. Intrigued by this, Ozzy heads over to the crate where he knocks off the clover, allowing Leprechaun to escape. He tries to keep Ozzy locked in the basement, but his powers are too weak without his gold.
You only got away because my powers are weak.
However, once Ozzy takes everyone down to the basement to check it out, of course, nothing's there and nobody believes him. Ozzy then spots a rainbow outside where he tries to find the end of it, of course to find a pot of gold. Alex, being the 10-year-old boy who is forced to take care of a grown man, proceeds to chase after Ozzy to try to get him back. Ozzy actually manages to find the rainbow ending at an abandoned truck. Inside that truck, they find a bag of gold, which Ozzy believes is the Leprechaun's, but of course Alex doesn't think so. Somehow, someway, Ozzy manages to swallow one of the gold coins, which is going to be a key plot point for the future. After that, we cut back to the house where we see Nathan and Tori painting the side of the farmhouse. Tori goes to get more paint from the back of the truck where she feels someone grabbing her leg. Once she realizes it's not Nathan, she freaks out, causing the Leprechaun to scratch her leg pretty badly. Tori's father hears the screaming and comes to investigate when they hear a cat meowing off in the distance. Believing that must have been what scratched Tori, JD goes after it, but once he reaches inside of the tree to get the cat, he is bitten by the evil Leprechaun. They all hop in the truck and head over to the emergency room, where the Leprechaun quickly follows behind on his mini tricycle. As the others are waiting inside of the ER, Ozzy and Alex go to a shop to get their coin appraised, where they find out that it could be worth $500 or may even be priceless. The shop owner then asks if he can keep the coin overnight so he can do a little more research on it. Once the shop owner is alone and inspecting the coin, this is where our second kill of the movie comes into play. As the shop owner is trying to open up his safe, he gets hit in the back by the Leprechaun's tricycle, which obviously startles him. He then goes to inspect what might have caused that, but finds nothing, and heads back to his safe. Once he finally manages to get the safe open, the Leprechaun pops out and once again demands his gold.
I want me gold coin.
The Leprechaun bites the leg of the store owner, causing him to fall down, where he eventually gives the Leprechaun back his coin. However, that didn't satisfy the Leprechaun. The Leprechaun grabs a pogo stick from across the room, where he then proceeds to bounce up and down on the shop owner multiple times until he kills him. As far as where do I rank this kill, it's definitely going above the first kill. That is without a doubt. I think it is definitely better than good. I can't quite justify putting it in S tier because this isn't, Drew Barrymore at the beginning of Scream, so I'm going to put it at a franchise standout, which honestly the title of that makes sense for this kill, because when I think of Leprechaun and the kills in the entire franchise, this is the first one that comes to mind. It's the first or second kill of the entire franchise, but it's the perfect blend of scary, creepy, but like funny and kind of witty, and it's not quite to the levels of Freddy Krueger and Robert Englund, but I mean that's not necessarily a knock on the Leprechaun, that's just praising Freddy Krueger. But I love the pogo on his long line. That gets me every single time.
This old Lep, he played one. He played pogo on his line.
I also just love how he approaches him in kind of slow motion, and then he starts bouncing on him in slow motion. It speeds up. It doesn't really hold up over the years, but I think that kind of adds to the charm of it. It's a little bit corny, but I like it for that. This movie has a lot of nostalgia, and especially this kill. As soon as that scene is done, we are now headed into our third kill of the movie. Presumably on his way back to the farmhouse, riding a little toy car that he happened to find inside the shop, the Leprechaun is spotted by a sitting police officer and then pulled over. Once the officer bends down to the Leprechaun's level and starts taunting him, the Leprechaun grabs his face and starts crushing it. Leprechaun eventually lets him go, causing the officer to run away and scream in a bloody panic. After running through the woods and stumbling in classic horror movie fashion, then hiding behind a tree in classic horror movie fashion, the officer eventually stumbles upon the leprechaun's hat. Once he picks up the hat, the leprechaun starts taunting the officer by showing off his teleportation skills. Eventually, the officer runs away back into the woods once more before resting on a tree, only for the leprechaun to jump down from said tree, land on his shoulders, and snap his neck. As far as where do I rank this neck snapping of the officer, I think it's going to go probably right in between these two. It's definitely better than the first kill by far, but it's definitely not a franchise standout, so, you know, right in the middle is where it deserves to go. This, along with the pogo stick kill, you kind of see the leprechaun's humor here, how he taunts the officer. He could have easily killed him at the car, but, you know, he wanted to let him go, chase him through the woods, play that hide-and-seek, whack-a-mole type of game with him. He even, at one point, he could have killed him, and the officer, I think, threw his gun or baton or something at him, and the leprechaun just laughs and runs away because he's not concerned about killing him yet. He wants to play with his food and then eat the meal. Well, he doesn't really eat it, but you know what I mean. So this kill, like I said, not a franchise standout. Not as funny as the pogo on your lung. Not really as, I think it's more creepy, but, you know, overall it just wasn't as good. But like I said, they do blend that comedy with the horror element in there too. And also, if you aren't expecting the kill happening, him jumping or dropping down from the tree onto his shoulders could actually be a little bit of a jump scare, but seeing as I've seen this movie a bunch, I see it coming. As the crew was out getting something to eat, waiting on JD to get out of the ER, Leprechaun has headed back to the farmhouse and search for the gold, where he realizes just how hideous he really is. He then starts cleaning every single shoe that he can get his hands on, giving us a glimpse into his obsessive behavior. When they all head back to the farmhouse, they discover the mess that Leprechaun has created and begin to clean it up. After cleaning up, they hear a bell start to ring, which turns out wasn't from Ozzy like earlier.
What I found.
When Nathan heads outside to investigate, he is caught in a bear trap and then attacked by the leprechaun. Once everyone comes out to help, Nathan manages to get a shot off in the leprechaun from the shotgun, causing him to run off. They all hop inside the truck so they can leave, but it won't start, and Alex knows exactly what's wrong with it.
Distributor cap.
When he goes to pop the hood to fix it, of course, Leprechaun is waiting for a surprise attack. He manages to break inside the car and bite Ozzy's ear before being burned with a car lighter by Tori. After the leprechaun rolls the car with some sort of super strong vehicle that he constructs by himself inside the shed, the crew run off into the house that the leprechaun chases, but he gets his hand slammed in the door where it falls off and starts climbing up the door in a really creepy way. Tori gets the police on the line and convinces them to send help, but once the station calls for help, the leprechaun once again uses his clever voice-changing ability to stir up some trouble. Back at the house, Alex finally tells Tori about the hidden gold that he and Ozzy found and tells her where she can find it. Tori then heads out to the well to retrieve the gold, thinking if the leprechaun gets it back, he will be satisfied. Once she gives him back the gold and he has it in his possession again, all things seem to be going well. However, that is until he starts counting all the gold he has to make sure he has exactly 100 gold coins, only to find out he has 99.
I've been tricked.
This causes the leprechaun to get enraged once again, break inside the farmhouse, and go on this weird game of magical hide-and-seek, demanding his gold again.
You should have picked door number 2, me lad.
As all of this is going on, Ozzy finally realizes that the last gold coin the leprechaun is after is the one he swallowed earlier and is inside his stomach. When he goes to give himself up to the leprechaun, the others refuse to let him do so. Ozzy then thinks that maybe if they go and find Mr. O'Grady, that he will be able to give him answers on how to defeat the leprechaun. Tori heads off to find Mr. O'Grady in a nursing home, and in order to distract the leprechaun from following her, the others throw shoes everywhere. They throw the shoes and the leprechaun can't help but to get all those darn shoes clean. Once she arrives at the nursing home, she finally finds Mr. O'Grady sitting in his chair, only to realize that it's actually the leprechaun once again. After going on a chase throughout the nursing home, Tori locks herself inside of the elevator where Mr. Dan O'Grady falls through the ceiling. He states that the leprechaun has come back after him, and before he dies, he tells her the only way to kill the leprechaun is by placing a 4-leaf clover onto his body. So for the final kill, where is it going to go on the tier list? I'm actually going to put it, sadly, in D tier. Now, the reason I do that is because I just think that there was a missed opportunity here. I like that they kind of put the Leprechaun in Mr. O'Grady's seat and give you that little surprise there, but I just feel like this was way too contrived. Like, when did the Leprechaun kill him, and how convenient was it that he, survived the attack, was stuffed in the ceiling, and didn't die until after he was able to tell Tori how to kill him, like 10 seconds after? Or how about the fact that he just conveniently fell down through the ceiling at the exact time that Tori went into the, elevator? There's just so many things like that don't sit well with me with this kill. And then you add to the fact that it's probably no, it's not even the first goriest or the second goriest. I'd say the pogo stick kill and the officer getting his neck stabbed more bloody. There's a little bit of blood on him, but it just kind of looks painted on. This franchise isn't really, or this movie specifically, isn't gory to begin with, so you gotta make up for the kills in other ways, be it, the creativity and the funniness with the pogo stick or the neck snapping, the neg that I just combined neck and leg, the neck snapping, or just have some cool visual elements and, an important plot to the story, like Mrs. O'Grady. Now, as I say that, this was an important plot to the story. That's probably why it's not getting cut from the movie, because in order, to find out how to kill the Leprechaun, we needed this event from Mr. O'Grady. So that's probably the only thing saving it from being cut from the movie. I don't like how contrived it is, and it just felt just dumb. I'm not sure how else to describe it, so definitely poorly executed. It's funny, the kills are at least done for this video, and we kind of have it all even out. We have one in each grade other than the really, really elite, and this should be banished forever, so pretty even to start off the first movie. So after Mr. O'Grady finally dies, Tori returns home in search for that 4-leaf clover that he described, and eventually finds one after Ozzy tells her that all she needs to do is believe. However, as this is going on, Alex has set up his own little plan to kill the Leprechaun himself, but is attacked by the Leprechaun in the barn. Once they all go to rescue Alex, Ozzy tells the Leprechaun that the coin is inside of him, and if he wants it, he's gotta come get it. The Leprechaun proceeds to chase after Ozzy and attacks him with the buckle of his shoe. Alex cleverly takes this opportunity to use a slingshot where he places a 4-leaf clover onto it, hits the Leprechaun, and sends him into the well.
Fuck you, Lucky Charms.
Thinking that he's dead, everyone kind of rejoices, only for the Leprechaun to crawl back up the well in a very creepy, half-burnt looking manner, kind of like Chucky at the very end of the first Child's Play. Nathan knocks him back down the well, pours his gasoline inside of the well, and blows up the Leprechaun. This means that the Leprechaun is presumably dead, however, we know he is still alive because just before the credits begin to roll, we can hear him talking.
I'll not rest till I have me gold. Curse this well that me soul shall dwell, till I find me magic that breaks me spell.
So that is going to wrap it up for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, be sure to drop a like and hit subscribe if you want to see more content like this. The next video that comes out like this will be on Leprechaun 2. I'll be doing the same format as this, then I'll do 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth until we finish this franchise. After each movie is complete, I'll make another video where I rank each of these movies on a tier list like this, and then one final one where I rank each of the Leprechaun performances, whether it be their acting, the wittiness, the one-liners, stuff like that, into another separate video. Overall, I'd say this video worked out pretty well. There wasn't a whole lot of kills in this first movie, but each Leprechaun after this I think actually gains more kills, so this is going to be more interesting. However, the quality of the movies do go down significantly. Overall, the positives of the movie, there were a lot in my opinion. I think Warwick Davis does an amazing job at blending humor with this creepiness that he has. His one-liners and his jokes are very memorable, like I said, especially the pogo on your lung, but pretty much everything throughout this full movie. Now, like I said, his one-liners and his monologue get a little questionable as the franchise goes on, much like everything else though. There's also this scene that I don't think I talked about in this review where he ends up, after he kills the officer, Tori runs to that car where she thinks the police officer's sitting, and obviously he's dead. I think she like pokes him in the eye and he loses an eye, and he does this thing where he rips out the officer's eye and puts it in his own and just says an eye for an eye. And like, when I was young, it used to really creep me out. It was just weird. You look at it now and you could tell that he's clearly holding a fake eyeball, and it doesn't hold up the best, but it's still, that's part of the charm with it. Also, for being an early 90s slasher that's also like a comedy B-horror type thing, the acting's pretty damn good. It's not like, you know, Hollywood, Leonardo, Will Smith, you know, it's not that, but it's good for what it is. There's no complaints here. For being Jennifer Aniston's first credited movie role, she does a pretty good job. Warwick Davis knocks it out of the park. That's not even a question. And I also think that Mark Holton as Ozzy does a really good job too. There's a couple other movies I remember seeing him in, off the top of my head, Gacy and Teen Wolf, and I liked him in those as well. He brings this key point to the movie where his stupidity, without it, there wouldn't be the movie. If he wasn't stupid knocking the clover off the chest, he wouldn't have broken out. If he didn't swallow the coin, the leprechaun would never came after him because he would have had 100 coins. So without Ozzy being stupid, you really wouldn't have a leprechaun movie, and he just plays that character so well. And for my final positive and my takeaway from this is that I just like how they use the classic tale of the leprechaun and spin it into a horror fashion. You know, they use he's from Ireland, he's small, he's got belt buckles and a top hat, and he likes shoes, and they use all of that lore and just made it creepy and kind of funny, and I think they did a really good job of doing that. As far as the negatives go, there's really only one. I mean, you could say that it's corny, and you could say that it's, you know, tongue-in-cheek, and it's cheesy, and it's B-horror, but to me, those are positives. To some people, they're negatives. To me, it's a positive. Other than the pogo stick kill, none of them are really memorable. I honestly I didn't forget about them, but I needed a refresher. I always remember that pogo stick kill, but other than that, just not that memorable, and especially for a slasher movie, that's kind of something you want. But this is a movie that leans more towards the character of the leprechaun itself and the story rather than the kills per se. There also wasn't a lot of gore, but again, that's just not a theme of this movie. There's really no gore, so I can't really take away too much as a negative from that, but it is a negative. But like I said, guys, that is it for this one. If you enjoyed it, be sure to drop a like and hit subscribe for more content like this.